I casually reached up and brought her palm to my cheek, partly because I wanted her to feel comfortable again and partly because I missed the feeling of her hand against my face. I inhaled her beautiful scent, barely noticing the ache it incited in my throat. "Easier all the time," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Then with one final breath I took off. I immediately felt her hand leave my face and resume its firm grip around my neck. I wished I could see her. I really had no way of knowing how she would react to the speed. Since I couldn't read her and I really didn't want to stop until we reached the truck, I simply let myself thrill to the excitement of running. It wasn't just the running though, it was feeling Bella there with me, finally sharing with her the one part of this miserable existence I actually enjoyed. I thought about slowing down, to prolong the moment, but I was anxious to hear her thoughts on the experience. I hoped it was as invigorating for her as it always was for me. After just a few minutes, I spotted her truck in the distance. Slowing down to a gentle stop, I took in another deep breath, letting her scent mingle with all the life of the forest around us. It was divine. "Exhilarating, isn't it?" I asked excitedly. I waited for a few seconds, eager for her response, when it occurred to me she was still gripping me so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "Bella?" I asked, growing concerned. "I think I need to lie down," she said breathlessly. "Oh, sorry," I said, feeling a sharp pain of regret. I didn't think it would have bothered her that much. "I think I need help," she added, arms and legs still clenched around me. Despite my best efforts, a small laugh escaped my lips. Of all the things about me she couldn't handle, of course it would end up being the one thing I was so sure she would like. I unlocked her grip and pulled her into my arms, wrapping her up the way I had in our meadow. The human gestures were coming to me more readily every second. I was enjoying holding her, but then I remembered she had asked to lie down. I lowered her carefully onto the ferns and quickly inspected her to make sure there was no outward damage. Had I underestimated the effect of the sharp wind against her face, or the amount of strain the speed would put on her body? "How do you feel?" I asked, genuinely concerned though I couldn't see anything wrong with her. "Dizzy, I think." "Oh, well I guess that was a reasonable response. Put your head between your knees." I've never understood it, but I'd heard people say it helped. I continued watching her, and listening as her breathing steadied. Eventually she lifted her head, though she kept her eyes closed. "I guess that wasn't the best idea," I murmured apologetically. "No, it was very interesting," she said, eyes still squeezed shut. I laughed at her feeble attempt to make me feel better. "Ha! You're as white as a ghost." "No, you're as white as me." I laughed. "I think I should have closed my eyes," she said, shaking her head at herself. "Remember that next time." "Next time," she yelled, and I had to laugh again. Then quietly I heard her mutter, "Show off." I sat there listening to her as her breathing steadied and watched her, wondering how on earth this could be her most difficult moment of the day. She'd been alone with me all day as I relentlessly shared with her my darkest secrets. She didn't fear my unnatural skin or my unyielding strength. She reveled in my cold touch and graced me with her warm fingertips in return. I'd accomplished everything I set out to do and so much more. There was only one way this day could be more perfect, and in that quiet moment, with only the sound of her heart and our breathing, I let myself believe it was possible. "Open your eyes, Bella," I said in my gentlest voice. As her beautiful eyes fluttered open, I heard her breath catch. She was surprised by how close I was, but it didn't seem to bother her. In fact, I could swear she moved just a fraction of an inch nearer to me by instinct. I was thinking, while I was running. I began, wondering how I would bring up what I so desperately wanted to try. "About not hitting trees, I hope," she interjected. "Silly Bella," I laughed. "Always afraid of me for all the wrong reasons. Running is second nature to me, it's not something I have to think about." "Show off," she said again, this time obviously meaning for me to hear it. I smiled at her and prepared myself for what was next. The last hurdle to jump over. My final test of the day. Just how close could I be to her and still keep the monster at bay? No. I was thinking there was something I wanted to try. Of course all of this was entirely new to me, so I hadn't the faintest idea of how to start. So I decided to begin with the gesture that had left us both feeling so at peace earlier. I took her soft face into my hands and gazed into her eyes. For a moment, she stopped breathing altogether. It wasn't until then that I realized I hadn't taken a breath in a while either. Perhaps that was smart. But being stupid had gotten me pretty far today, so I decided to take a careful breath. Even with her face inches from mine and her moist lips parted as she realized what I wanted to do, I was in control. I moved very slowly toward her until I could feel her breath on my face. It was warm, just like her touch, and I paused to marvel at how wonderful it felt. Taking another deep and cautious breath, I watched her eyes close softly. A quiet sigh escaped her lips and it was all the reassurance I needed. There was no need great enough to make me harm her, now or ever. So I let my own eyes close as hers had, and pressed my lips to hers. It was the most magnificent feeling, soft and loving. I could taste her on my lips but it didn't ignite the painful thirst as I had expected. It made me long for more of her embrace. Unfortunately, Bella seemed as in tune to my desires as always, and was all too willing to give me what I wanted. Every caution, every warning, every plea I had made to her to stay still disappeared. Her fingers reached up and grabbed at my hair and secured my face to hers. Her lips were parted beneath mine and I could feel her breathing me in just as I had breathed her in. And without warning it was too much. The tender, affectionate man was gone and the monster could once again taste what it desired most. And this time my prey was clutching me to her. I froze, holding my breath and forcing the beast to retreat. I quickly played back our day in the grass, remembering the way her eyes watched me with curiosity and above all her graceful innocence. Without opening my eyes, I pushed her face away but couldn't bring myself to release her entirely. Feeling her perfect warmth in my hands was the only thing allowing me to hold on to my last bit of restraint. Still refusing to breathe, I opened my eyes. Hers were still closed, and even in the midst of the terrible moment, I found myself wondering what she was thinking. Eventually her eyes opened, and after taking in my expression, she whispered, "Oops." "That's an understatement," I mumbled sarcastically. "Should I?" She started to move, but that only seemed to make it worse. I couldn't have her stirring her scent around me. "No, it's tolerable." "Wait for a moment, please," I said as calmly as I could manage. Even then I refused to let her know just how close I had been to letting the monster out. It helped that she never took her eyes off of mine. There was no way I would have been able to hurt her while staring into them. She watched me with such adoration, it made the wild thirst die down more quickly. "There," I finally said, feeling a touch of my earlier peace return to me. "Tolerable?" she asked, smirking ever so slightly. Casual and relaxed again so quickly. I had to laugh. "I'm stronger than I thought." "It's nice to know." "Yes." I needed to focus on the strength I had found rather than the weakness that had almost overtaken me. After all, I had still won the battle. And I learned another piece of information that would help me next time. I wondered how she would react if I asked her to keep her eyes open while kissing me. I wish I could say the same. "I'm sorry," she said, frowning. I couldn't bear to see her place the blame on herself again. So I teased her. She seemed to like it when I made jokes. "You are only human, after all." "Thanks so much," she said bitterly, and I wished I had just left it alone. Ready for this dismal moment to be over, I jumped to my feet and reached for her hand. I was surprised when she didn't immediately take it and worried I'd frightened her more than I'd thought, but then I felt her hand in mine and everything felt normal again. Well, normal for us. She wobbled unsteadily as I tried to get a better grip on her. Of course I was used to her lack of coordination, but I couldn't resist the urge to make just one more joke. "Are you still faint from the run? Or was it my kissing expertise?" I laughed. She watched me for a moment, like she was trying to work out some equation in her head. If she had any idea how frustrating it was for me not knowing. "I can't be sure, I'm still woozy," she finally answered. "I think it's some of both, though." "Maybe you should let me drive," I offered, wondering how in the world she would be able to drive when she could barely walk. "Are you insane?" "I can drive better than you on your best day," I reminded her. "You have much slower reflexes." I didn't mean it as an insult. It was just one of the differences between our two kinds. "I'm sure that's true, but I don't think my nerves, or my truck, could take it." "Some trust, please, Bella." I almost laughed at the irony of my asking for her trust now, when she'd done nothing but give it to me wholeheartedly all day. I watched as her hand clenched in her pocket, probably holding on to the key with all her might. She seemed to think about it momentarily, but shook her head, unwilling to budge. "Nope. Not a chance." I lifted an eyebrow, silently asking if she was really putting her foot down on this one. I don't know why, but as she began walking around me toward the driver's side, it started to feel like a challenge.